Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be using the Hello Sweetheart layering stencils, the stamps, and the dies. I showed you the delicate doily stencil, but I didn't end up using it. I ended up using the swirling vines cover plate instead. So let's talk about these stencils. You know me, I like to color. I like to color with my Copics. However, I was very intrigued by the idea of this layering stencil set. So I decided to do it without the stamp first, just so I could see what it would look like. And originally I started off by putting my tape on the back of my card and then laying my stencil on top of that so that it stuck to the tape but wasn't in the way of any of the stenciling. And that worked for me for like the first couple of layers, but I ended up switching it. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. This video is actually part of a video hop for Honeybee for this brand new release that they are doing. There's so much cute, good stuff in there, and I will for sure use that delicate doily stencil on something because I think it's adorable, but it just didn't work out for this card. So what I wanted to do today was I wanted to show you how you can get shading and depth with your distress inks and still make a really quick easy but beautiful colorful card. So I'm going to be using 3 to 4 colors with each layer. This is the only layer for the leaves, and so I started with the salvaged patina, and then I went to Lucky Clover, and my darkest color is the pine needles. And for the lightest color I filled it in completely, and then for my mid-tone, I went up about halfway, and then the darkest color I just kept at the bottom. And how I achieved this was just by angling my foam brush or my foam pad. It would probably be easier if you use the brushes. Honeybee does have brushes, but I just don't have enough for all the colors that I used. So I stuck with my good old traditional foam pads because that's what I have. So the second layer here is they're all labeled, which I think is so brilliant. Like they're labeled numbers, but they're labeled by what they are too, so you can kind of pick your color scheme. So the first one is leaves, the second one is the center of the flowers, and I used mustard seed, fossilized amber, and then a little bit of ground espresso, again, just to kind of achieve that depth. Now, you know with my backgrounds that I always go over my distress inking twice to get the best blends, but because these areas are so small, I'm getting a lot of really good color saturation the first time around. So layer 3 is the small flowers, and this is certainly how you could mix and match the colors in your heart bouquet here. I did them all the same color. So this is where I finally figured out that creating kind of like a stencil flap was going to work better for me. When I was trying to line up each layer, it was getting stuck on the tape on the bottom, so I just took that part off and then put it on top. Like I took it off the back and put it on top of the stencil, and that worked really well for me. I cannot believe how easy these were to find, because on each consecutive layer it has kind of the outline and you can see it a little bit where I'm inking over it, so it's so easy to just line it up and get it exactly where you need it to be. It would probably be even easier if I had stamped my stamp first, but I really wanted to see what it looked like without the stamp in the background, and if that was something that was reasonable to use without purchasing the stamp, and I'm here to tell you that it is. So if you're really feeling the stencils, you could totally just pick these up and still be able to make a beautiful card. The only thing that you have to kind of do yourself is these flowers right here. These flowers right here are like I think they're labeled as like the medium flowers or mid flowers or something like that, but they don't have any centers in them, and so you would have to create your own centers. In the stamp, it fills in the centers. That's why I think they aren't part of the stencil piece, because they don't have like those full solid yellow centers that you would see, but you could do that super easy with some rhinestones or just with some like taking a marker and doing some dots. Or if you wanted to, you could just cut out your own little center and put like a mask in the middle, and then color that in later on. So there's a bunch of different options. The stamp, like the centers, are just like black hand drawn stamens, so that would also work as well if you wanted to do those yourself. So you can see that the way that I'm doing them, I'm doing the picked raspberry, the seedless preserves, and the dusty concord. The Here's where I'm going to add the fourth color, and it's the only time that I use it, and it's because all of these flowers have one kind of petal that is sitting on top. So in order to create that depth, I used the same color combination, but then I added some chipped sapphire at the very end just to make the area around the centers as dark as possible to get really good dimension. I had a lot of fun making this card, honestly. Like, even though I wasn't coloring with my Copics, I used to color my images with Distress ink all the time. It's such a versatile medium, and they're such a good investment. So here we're moving on to the last layer, which is those petals that are missing from each of the larger flowers. And the only thing I will tell you here is just pay attention to how the petals fold out. So the one at the top left, the shading is really going to be more to the bottom right, where the other two, the shading is going to be closer to the centers, just because of the way the petal fills in there. So I did try to use the Delicate Doily stamp set. I did this twice, actually. I did these twice. Even though I said I'd never start over, rules are made to be broken, and I just could not make it work. I had made the background too dark, and it was competing with the flowers, and it was awful. Honestly, it was my own doing, but it was not good. So I know we're all our own worst critics, and I probably could have just die cut it out if I would have just left well enough alone when I realized that I didn't like it, but I kept trying to make it work in traditional Kelly fashion, and it just didn't. So here I'm just lining up the stamp with the help of my Misty. I did get it just a little off at the top, but it wasn't so much that I was concerned about it. And again, I'm sure that if I had started with the stamping instead of with the stencil, that would not have been an issue for me. But I just wanted to see what it looked like without the stamp, and I'm running on minimal time, and so I have to do what I have to do to survive. It's been a very fussy week in our household. They say that at 6 weeks, their fussiness peaks. She's had 4 days now where in the evenings she's just cried endlessly. Here I'm using the Swirly Vines cover plate. I think that this is such a cute plate, and you could use it for so many things, especially if you're a person like me who likes florals. This is a super great background, and it doesn't cut anything. It just impresses the image of the swirling vines in the background. I use the sentiment that's from the same Hello Sweetheart set, and then die cut that out as well. But anyway, so yeah, Miss Caitlin has been very fussy this week. It also happened to be the same week that Eric went back to work. So while we do have a lot of help, because we have wonderful, supportive families who, come out here well, his mom drives an hour one way to come out here and help us. And my mom is obviously very close, but my mom got her COVID booster this week, so she hasn't been feeling very well. And so she sent me a message, and she was like, I feel like I'm not helping you enough. And I'm like, get out of here. Like, you don't feel good. You don't need to be over here dealing with a kid screaming in your face. That's my responsibility. I'm the one who chose to have a baby. So it's just been a very long week. I keep trying to remind myself that if this is the peak of her fussiness, that it can only get better from here. It's just been very long. And since Eric is back at work, you know, solo, 2 kids, and one of them screaming at you the whole time. It's just been a very long week, and I will be very, very grateful when this stage is over. I will be so grateful. Um, so yeah, so to the person who mentioned in my last video that I don't always have story time, it's because it's not always sunshine and rainbows over here, and so sometimes there just isn't a good story to tell. That it's just not the kind of week I'm having, unfortunately. Um, so for the after I die cut the little heart frame out, I did pop that up on foam in order to make my sentiment even. I only put foam on just the right hand side, and then I glued down the left hand side so that it's at the same level as my heart. And then I've been using these rhinestones like nobody's business. Um, but they have like a really pretty pink one in there, and so I did use that. I kind of played around with where to put them. I wasn't really sure how I liked them, but I did eventually find a way. That's not true. What eventually happened was I was like, meh, I don't care. I'm going to put them where I put them, and that's where they land. I did put shimmer on my flowers, but please be cautious about this. Distress inks are meant to react with water, which means they react with any moisture. So if you go in there with a glitter pen like I am doing, make sure you're paying attention to how you're applying it, because you can move the pigment underneath, just because that's how distress inks are made. So I am the last stop on the video hop for Honeybee. If you just happen to be stopping by my channel, everybody's videos will be linked below. Please check them out. They're all wonderfully talented people. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.